I'd like to call this meeting to order. Welcome, everyone. And at this time, I'd like to give the opening to Councillor Bill Hiebert.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Tonight, I will reflect back to why I became a councillor with the City of Steinbach. As a volunteer for the Steinbach Pistons for several years, I realized our Centennial Arena, being over 50 years old, did not fit the standard for a progressive city. Ice surface not meeting regulation size, poor seating, a crowded lobby, and many other repairs that needed to be done. I listened to many people talk about the plans and the needs for a new rec center. So with encouragement from friends and several local business people, I decided I would get involved by joining in the decision making. My second motivation was a shortage of care beds for the elderly in the last years of their life, having to go to Vida, Morris, and other communities because we did not have room in our city, not realizing that we were very close to getting it done. So in the summer of 2018, with the support of Darlene, my wife, and family, I announced my candidacy for council. On the campaign trail, I visited many doors and heard many requests from sidewalks to paving streets to Sunday shopping, which we fortunately got during this term due to some regulation changes with the legislature. And a lot of talk about the recreation/arena. I also met with people I went to school with that I didn't know still lived in Steinbach and had many great conversations. The door-to-door was my favorite part of the campaign. In October of 2018, I was elected and attended my first council meeting ever. Green as can be and a lot to learn. This has challenged me in a big way, but I've appreciated the support of working together with the rest of council as well as the leaders in our city. Today I look back at the progress that we have made in just 3 years and 8 months, thanks to strong leadership and the support of local charities like the Bethesda Foundation, Haven Group, and many generous businesses as well as private individuals. In 2019, we had the groundbreaking ceremony for our Rest Haven nursing home and its completion by 2022, with 143 new care beds, an awesome facility. And in July of 21 came the official announcement of funding and a green light to go ahead with the planning of the much anticipated Southeast Event Centre. Again in October of 21, then the Honourable Premier of Manitoba and MLA Kelvin Gertsen announced a significant expansion for the Bethesda Regional Healthcare Centre. The long anticipated kidney dialysis unit, also adding 23 additional beds and upgrades in most areas of healthcare. As a whole, we've seen significant upgrades in our roads and underground infrastructure. Several new developments added, like Park Hill has been extended, Lexington Village has kept on growing, Woodhaven Avenue, and the recently added Langill Farm. So there was also the market place where High Life is building their facility. Since 2018, we have added over 1,000 new housing units in our city. And with High Life's headquarters and Penco Construction locating in Steinbach, plus the added jobs at Rest Haven, we'll have brought well over 500 new jobs just in those 3 areas alone. With all that's been planned for the next couple of years, I am eagerly anticipating the completion of the Southeast Event Centre, the hospital expansion, and the continued growth. Thus, I am announcing today that I will run for re-election on October 26. I'm looking forward to the opportunity of serving the citizens of Steinbach for the next 4 years. Thank you.
Thank you, and congratulations, Councillor Hiebert. Council, we have the agenda in front of us, looking for a motion to adopt. Councillor Penner, second by Councillor Hiebert. Call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Council, we have the minutes of June 21st, 2022, the regular council meeting. Looking for a motion to approve. Councillor Siemens, second by Councillor Hiebert. Any comments?
No, sir.
Call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Is there any business arising from the minutes? Okay, seeing none. Council, we have no public hearings or delegations today, so we'll go directly to number 8, reports and recommendations from the city manager. Mr. Workentine. Could you please introduce this file? This is a file about affordable housing grant. This is referring to Steinbach Community Outreach.
That's correct, and Mr. Mayor, I'll defer this to City's Corporate Services Manager, Adam Thiessen.
Yes, thank you. At the regular council meeting of November 2nd, an affordable housing project proposal from Steinbach Community Outreach was recommended by the city to MHRC. MHRC in turn provided this approval recommendation letter on December 9th, and that's the attached letter you've got in your packages there. Since then, the project planning has proceeded and related documentation is now drafted to support it. So our recommendation is to award grant funding of $1,337,500 to Steinbach Community Outreach Incorporated for the development of affordable housing in Steinbach, subject to the execution of a grant funding agreement.
Thank you, Mr. Thiessen. Council, how would you like to proceed? Councillor Siemens?
Make a motion to approve awarding the grant funding of $1,337 to the community, Steinbach Community Outreach Incorporated.
Thank you. Is there a seconder for that? Councillor Schweitzer? Go ahead, Councillor Siemens.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think this is a great opportunity for our community that was presented to us. I know that back in when the grant was provided to the city to do something with affordable housing, I didn't know how that would quite work out for our community. And that was approximately a year and a half ago. And the question I had was, what are we going to do with this as a community? I was very happy that Steinbach Community Outreach came forward with a plan, and we accepted that plan. And this motion then provides them with a funding of just over $1.3 million. So again, I didn't quite know what to do, but Steinbach Community Outreach has provided the city with an opportunity to just that, to move towards affordable housing in our community, and this is specifically for low-income individuals living in Steinbach. Like many communities, Steinbach is in short supply of affordable housing. This build will have 24 units, including 12 bachelor suites of 400 square feet each and 12 one-bedroom suites of 600 square feet each, and it'll be offered as affordable housing to low-income individuals. Each of these units will have clients making under $23,500 for the bachelor suites or $32,000 for the one-bedroom that are going to be eligible for this. Rent will be set at $583 for the bachelor suites and $801 for the one-bedroom suites, and this will include all of the utilities. What makes this all the more attractive for Steinbach is that this is a 20-year commitment guided by the MHRC guidelines. And SCO will be working with other community agencies to refer tenants to this building. But the $1.3 million, Mr. Mayor, does not build this building. They have done fundraising. The projected cost and the estimated cost at that time in November when they presented was $3.6 million. I'm sure that it is higher now. But it's, I'm happy that the city can provide the $1.3 million grant. That will provide them with a good kickoff to the fundraising, if they haven't already done fundraising, and support in the mortgage to build this. And I think this is a necessity in Steinbach.
Councillor Siemens. Anything further, Councillor?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm certainly happy to second the motion. We know that there's a need for more affordable housing in Steinbach for people who have lower incomes. And Steinbach Community Outreach, they've really proven themselves over the last number of years in terms of showing that they know how to provide assistance to people who are in need of housing. And this is just a great opportunity for them. And this grant funding, of course, comes from the province, and then we reviewed the different applications from different groups to receive this funding, and Steinbach Community Outreach had the best proposal. And so I think it's great that we're able to make sure they receive this $1.3 million grant. We look forward to the support that they are going to provide to these low-income individuals, and hopefully this is the first of many projects that will happen in this vein.
Anything further, Council? Anything in closing?
No.
Well, Council, I think this is a great project. I think it couldn't be done by a better organization in our community, and really looking forward to it going up. I'm really glad that we've decided to give the entire grant to them and not split it up, because I think it gives them more bang for their buck, so to speak. So looking forward to it. I think also the area that they found land in, I think it's going to really be sufficient for them. There's a park across the street. I think it's really going to fit well in our community. Call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Move over to 9, administration. 9A, accounts payable. We've all had a chance to review. Looking for a motion to approve. Councillor Hiebert, second by Councillor Pinner. Any comments?
No comments.
Call for the question. All those in favor? That is carried. We got 9B. This is bylaw 2210, MHRC loans. We're doing first and second reading on this today. Mr. Workington, could you please introduce this file?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I will also defer this one to the Corporate Services Manager for introduction.
Yes, thank you. This bylaw is in response to the requirement of MHRC to have the grant funding cover a project that remains affordable for a period of 20 years. So the way we're accommodating that is this bylaw provides for the lending of money to Steinbach Community Outreach in the amount of the grant, and then in turn the city gets back a second mortgage on the property that will be forgiven over the period of 20 years. This bylaw is required by the Manitoba Municipal Act to structure the agreement this way, and it was the best option that administration could find to ensure that the requirements of the grant from MHRC were complied with. That being said, recommendation from administration is to give bylaw 2210 first and second reading.
Thank you, Mr. Thiessen. Council, how would you like to proceed? Councillor Siemens.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A motion to approve?
Second by Councillor Pinner. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As indicated by administration, this is a technical side of the previous grant that we awarded them of just over 1.3 million, and this is similar to securing a second mortgage, so that with Steinbach Community Outreach for a minimum 20-year period, which is reduced by 1/20th amount of the mortgage each year, and this would fulfill the requirement of the Manitoba Housing and Renewal Corporation, as well as then it would support SEO and protect Steinbach in this as a community, and the loan does not bear any interest, or there's no extra charges to Steinbach Community Outreach for this.
Thank you, Councillor Siemens. Anything further, Councillor Pinner?
Nothing further.
Anything of council? Anything good?
No, sir.
Council, call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. We've got 9C, bylaw 2211, OCP. This is residential to commercial, referring to Old Tom Loewen. This will be first reading.
Mr. Mayor, second reading.
Oh, shoot. Sorry. Forgot. Second reading, even said, looking for a motion for second reading.
Motion to approve second reading?
Second by Councillor Siemens. Go ahead.
Nothing further, Mr. Mayor. Apparently, we need to move on quickly.
You're right. This is a good game if it's played fast.
Councillor Hiebert has to start door knocking now.
Thank you.
Well, anything further? Call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Okay, now we'll go to 9C, bylaw 2211, OCP, residential to commercial. This is referring to Old Tom Loewen. This is first reading. Mr. Worthing, could you please introduce this file?
Mr. Mayor, members of council, bylaw 2211 is an application to amend the city's official community plan for a proposed development in the northeast quadrant of the city. The application seeks approval to redesignate a portion of the subject property from residential policy area to commercial policy area under the city's official community plan bylaw 2099, with the remainder of the site remaining as residential. Recommendation is that City Council give this bylaw first reading, and a public hearing would be scheduled for later on this summer.
Thank you, Mr. Worthing. Morganton. Council, how would you like to proceed? Councillor Swagstra,
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll make the motion for first reading.
second by Councillor Pinner. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is the intent here is to have this area by Old Tom Road rezoned to commercial mixed use. This particular amendment that we're voting on is for our official community plan. The official community plan sets the overall direction of the city, and that area is currently designated as a residential policy area. So in order to consider the rezoning application, we have to first give approval to changing the official community plan to allow this to be a commercial policy area. This will go to a public hearing in August. Certainly on its face, it looks like a reasonable request. There is a lot of mixed use in the area. You've got the Red River campus, Stonebridge Medical Center. It certainly looks like there could be a strong case for allowing some commercial within the area, so hence the reason for redesignating this portion to commercial.
Thank you, Councillor. Anything further?
Nothing further.
Anything further for council? Anything closing? Okay, council, call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Okay, we'll go to 9D. This is bylaw 2221, rezoning DR1, CMX, Old Tom Loewen. This is the first reading as well. Mr. Worthing, could you please introduce this file?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Bylaw 2212 is related to the bylaw just recently considered by council. This bylaw seeks to revise the zoning for a portion of the subject property from DR1 Development Reserve 1 to CMX Commercial Mixed Use under City of Steinbach zoning bylaw 2100. It is recommended council give this bylaw first reading as well, and a public hearing would be scheduled for later in August to be run concurrently with the other related bylaw that is being proposed.
Thank you, Mr. Worthing. Council, how would you like to proceed? Councillor Siemens,
Motion to approve?
second by Councillor Hiebert. Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is also the same subdivision of just off Old Tom. At this point now, when we have land in reserve, it's under DR1, Development Reserve 1, and now they would like to move that to CMX, which is Commercial Mixed Use zoning. So in order for them to begin moving forward and planning, we need to also do rezoning. So this is to move it from Development Reserve to Commercial Mixed Use.
Anything further?
It's pretty clear. No, nothing to add.
Anything further for council? Anything closing?
Sir.
Okay, we'll call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. We'll go to 9E. This is bylaw 2213, rezoning DR1, RSF, RLD, RHD, Old Tom Loewen. This is the first reading as well. Mr. Worthing, could you please introduce this file?
Yes, Mr. Mayor and members of council, bylaw 2213 is a bylaw for proposed rezoning, which also involves the same property as the previous two bylaws located at the corner of Old Tom Road and Loewen Boulevard East. It is for the purposes of developing the property into a primarily residential type of development with some commercial uses. The specific application would seek approval to rezone the majority of the property from DR1 Development Reserve 1 to a mix of residential single-family, residential low-density, residential high-density under the City of Steinbach zoning bylaw 2100. Recommendation is to give this bylaw first reading, and the public hearing for this bylaw would also be concurrent with the previous two bylaws.
Thank you, Mr. Worthing. Council, how would you like to proceed? Councillor Penner,
Motion to approve.
second by Councillor Hiebert. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As has been noted already, Development Reserve is there for exactly that reason, reserve until somebody comes along with a viable plan and that administration feels is viable enough to forward off to us. And the best thing that we can generally do is move out of the way and let the market do what it dictates. And it's great to see that there's going to be a mix of commercial, low density and high density, as well as single family, and a total of potentially 94 lots. And so that's exciting to see.
Thank you, Councillor Penner. Anything further?
Nothing further.
Anything further, council? Anything closing? Call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Well, council, looks like in a few weeks, we're going to have a very busy meeting with public hearings. Yeah, 9F, this is subdivision 4451, 2022, 8652. This is referring to 102 Industrial Road. Mr. Workteam, could you please introduce this file?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Bylaw application for the file number, as you noted, is being applied for a property located at 102 Industrial Road in Steinbach. It is currently approximately 10 acres in size, and the proposed subdivision seeks to subdivide the parcel into 2 new parcels plus the residual. Currently, the subject property is zoned M1, which is light industrial. Development agreement remains on file from previous subdivision of the subject property with conditions that are appropriate for the proposed subdivision. With the actual drawing or the plan of subdivision that is indicated on the file actually does have an error on it. It does indicate a small portion of the land being designated as a public reserve. That is actually incorrect. There is no requirement to do so. So recommendation from administration is that council approve the subdivision application, subject to the applicant removing the public reserve parcel in the proposed plan and entering into a cross-access agreement with the city for the purposes of the city to be able to maintain its land drainage infrastructure in the abutting public reserve parcel located to the north of the subject property.
Thank you, Mr. Workteam. Council, how would you like to proceed?
Motion to approve.
Second by Councilor Penner. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As indicated by administration, this is a piece of land that's 10.33 acres in our industrial area, and the applicant is wishing to divide that into 3 different lots. Obviously, this is market-driven, and I think it's a good thing for the city as we move ahead and do various types of industry in our industrial area.
Anything further?
Nothing further, Mr. Mayor.
Anything further of council? Anything in closing?
No, thank you.
Okay, call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. We have 9G, page 66, we have the PSAB budget. Mr. Workman, would you like to introduce this file, please?
I could do so, Mr. Mayor. The city proposes a regular financial plan and budget in accordance with traditional requirements of the Municipal Act. In addition to public sector requirements, the city also prepares what's called a PSAB-based budget that's compliant for those particular regulations and rules that provide a little bit more information. This is an annual requirement that city administration works through. What it does is it actually reflects comparative budget figures that will align with financial statement presentation when the city completes its financial statements for the year. Recommendation is that council approve the PSAB-based budget for 2022, a summary of which is provided on page 68 of your agenda package.
Thank you. Council, how would you like to proceed? Councilor Spicer?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll make the motion to approve.
Second by Councilor Hiebert. Go ahead, Councilor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is our PSAB budget, Public Sector Accounting Board, which basically follows, well, there's a national standard here, and it takes into account things such as infrastructure and depreciation. All that makes it easier to compare organizations according to a universal standard. And so this is a standard thing that we do every year, so we should approve.
Thank you. Anything further?
No further comment.
Anything further of council? Anything closed? No. Okay, call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Council, is there any questions at this time? Okay, seeing none, we'll move to correspondence and petitions. We have 11A, this is the L.G.D. of Pinawa, East Interlake Municipal Golf Tournament. How would you like to proceed? Take it as information.
Please.
Okay. And we've got 11B, this is the Seine Roseau Watershed District, minutes May 17th and May 30th, 2022. How would you like to proceed? Take as information. In council, we have the 11C, it's a letter from the Hanover School Division asking for a community police, a community police officer. We've all been able to read the letter. Just wondering, council, how would you like to proceed? Councillor Swagstra?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will make a motion, and the motion is that the City of Steinbach approve the request from Hanover School Division to request an additional officer subject to two conditions. Condition one, that Hanover School Division cover 100% of the officer cost, and condition two, that Hanover School Division enter into a long-term funding agreement with the city that would be drafted by our city administration. I so move.
Okay, is there a seconder? So Councillor Siemens, go ahead, councillors.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is certainly an interesting request that we have from the school division, and I certainly understand the reasons why they would be making it. It is not uncommon for schools to have police, have a police presence in school, and obviously with the SRSS being a large school, when you have a significant number of students, then of course, just by sheer numbers, you're likely to have more incidents. The reason that this request is coming to us is that because we have the RCMP here, Hanover School Division and school boards can't enter directly into contracts with the RCMP. It's municipalities that do that. And so essentially what is being requested here is that the city would be a conduit. Now, the part of the request that I cannot go for is where they propose it be cost shared. And basically, under the formula that they propose, where officer salary times 70% times 50%, that basically amounts to the city of Steinbach, under their proposals, would be paying 2/3 of the cost, which is not an arrangement that I would consider to be acceptable. The city did recently add an extra officer to our detachment, which we're very pleased with in terms of dealing with our traffic issues. But if the school division feels that there is a need for this officer, I don't see a problem with us being the conduit, with us making the request. But because they're making the request, this is their initiative, they should be responsible for 100% of the cost. We've already added an extra officer. We're not at this point planning to add another and impact our budget in that way. And the way that this request is here, that would significantly impact our budget. The reason for putting in the stipulation about the long-term funding requirement is that once the city has an officer in place, then obviously we are, there's a responsibility there. So we would need assurances that that this funding arrangement would continue on a long-term basis, and that's why, if the school division did agree to this, that agreement would be drafted by our administration prior to anything going ahead. And so, with those two conditions, I think it's reasonable for us to approve the request, but it is important that the city taxpayers not receive additional costs at this time, and also that there's a long-term guarantee that the funding for that officer would be in place on an ongoing basis.
Thank you, Councillor Swagstra. Anything further, Councillor Steinbach?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I agree with the motion. I would like to make a friendly amendment that under the long-term agreement that city administration will put together, that it include a notice period of no less than 3-year agreement at minimum, that is a minimum time frame, and that we need at least 1-year notice if they were going to opt out of the agreement, that those be in there as a friendly amendment.
I have no issue with that. Could we ask administration just to comment on how specific do we want that to be? Because that's definitely the intent of the motion. I completely agree. Should we put that in, or is that too specific?
Because I haven't had an opportunity to actually consider what an agreement would look like, perhaps at this point it would be too specific. If council is satisfied that the general concept of a proper notice period is incorporated and is willing to proceed on a consensus basis, that is duly noted, and I would take that under advisement.
Then I'll withdraw my friendly amendment. Thank you. I think this is I think there is a need. They've asked for it. There's a need. This is what they feel. I also know that many of the students at SRSS do not come from the city of Steinbach, and I agree that the cost should be borne by the school division. They might have an opportunity to gain funds from other jurisdictions that might support this as well. I am disappointed that this letter was out in the press before we had an opportunity to sit down with the Hanover School Division to speak to this issue, whether through our police advisory or through City Council. But be that as it may, it is before council, so we do need to respond. And I appreciate the response or how it was put out. And I think it would help them, it would help protect them, but I also think we need to protect our city interests. We are the ones who hire RCMP officers. When we do put in a request, they have up to 1 year to fill that request. So if the intent here is to have it in place by September, even if all going well, that would very likely not happen. But I think that the motion as it stands is at this time an appropriate response to the Hanover School Division.
Thank you, Council. Anything further of Council? Anything closing?
Nope.
Well, Council, I too will I'll support this motion. I do believe it's important, like the first condition, I agree with. It's important that they do cover 100% of the police officer, because there will be very little benefit to the city. They do talk about off times being benefit to us, but once you have days off and holidays in there, there's not a lot of time that's going to come back to the city. So that's why I do believe it makes sense to ask them to cover 100%. And this officer will be dedicated to things of the school, and maybe not just the one school of SRSS, but possibly would go throughout the entire school division. And that's why I do believe it would be, it wouldn't be that beneficial for our city. I like the long-term funding agreement also, the second condition, and the notice period. The challenge with getting the officer, it does take a year, as Councillor Siemens did note. I mean, it sometimes comes sooner, but they have to 1 year to fill the vacancy once we've asked for it. But the challenge that I see is I've never ever heard of the federal government taking an officer back if you don't need an officer. I've never heard of them take one back. So when you purchase an officer like this, you own them forever. And I think that's why I would like to have exactly that, the cancellation agreement that you talk about, the notice, because we would have to make sure that we would then have a job for them in the city. So those are the two reasons why I approve of this motion. I'll call for all those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Okay, there is no other business. Looking for a motion to adjourn. Councillor Penner, second by Councillor Penner. Call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. The next regular council meeting is Tuesday, July 19th at 20.